I can't believe it worked. Those nuts from the Silver City were right. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. For now, that doesn't matter. I'm free. Oh, how I miss the fresh air. Although things up here aren't exactly as I remembered. I still feel a strange weight in my heart. I can sense it. If I died now, I'd go straight back to that place. I have to do everything to prevent that from happening, which means clearing the weight from my soul. I'm not exactly in a situation where I can help others. Hell, I can barely help myself. For now, I'm living in a homeless shelter while trying to find a job, which is kind of a hard thing to do when you don't have documents, or a history, or any kind of record. I mean, I did have these things once, but after I died, I'm sure my dear wife, with all her love and passion, threw them in the trash. The library's Wi-Fi sucks, and this computer must be older than the concept of time, but it'll do. It has to. I stumbled upon this place while searching for experiences similar to mine. I have no idea if half the accounts here are real, but I hope you believe me. I escaped from hell. I still vividly remember the centuries I spent there. Yeah, centuries. Time seems to move differently when you die. I'm writing this here in an attempt to do a good deed and stay in the good graces of the man upstairs. Maybe by reading this, you'll decide to live a good life like monks in Sumeria, or donate all your belongings to the first charity that comes along, become good people. But if for some reason you end up in that place anyway, let this serve as a quick guide of what not to do. And if you're lucky, survive hell and find a way out. I'm getting strange looks from the lady behind the counter. I better hurry up. I still remember the sensation upon waking up. One moment, I was on the operating table, vision blurred, a doctor yelling at the anesthesiologist, lights dancing. From what I could gather, the bastard had gone out to have fun a few hours before my surgery, clocked in not so sober, and ended up screwing up the dosages, waking me up at the worst moment. A domino effect started, resulting in a massive loss of blood. When I came to my senses, I was dead. It was horrible. I feel claustrophobic just remembering it. It was as if I were trapped in a cast of cement covering my entire body. I couldn't see. I couldn't breathe. A tremendous weight on my heart emerged, as if an anvil had been placed upon my chest. I felt immense dizziness and an overwhelming sense of fear and shame. I wanted to scream and cry, anything to get me out of that prison. Something heard my prayers. I was ripped out of my body. That monument of flesh and bones was no longer necessary for me. I stayed still, coming to my senses, watching the doctors desperately try to save me, but it was futile. I felt watched, as if something was evaluating me from all sides. A primal fear rose up my throat as I collapsed into tears. Remembering it now, I think I finally understood. My soul knew exactly what was happening, and it could feel where I was going. I begged, screamed on my knees for one more chance, but how many billions before me had done the same? What reason did they have to listen to me? I felt like I was falling. I saw myself passing through the floor as I struggled to rise. I fell, lower than the deepest pit, lower than the earth, lower than this earthly plane. My hands trembled just remembering. I fell like a shooting star through a dark sky. A foul air filled my lungs as my eyes adjusted to the sight below me. Up here, we have many names for it. Hell, abyss, limbo. Down there, they all call it Gehenna, the last city to ever exist. My first day in Gehenna was like those of many who came before me. I fell like a sack of shit into a pit of tar. Still in shock from it all, I struggled to get out. That black goo is always as hot as Satan's oven, sticking to your skin, and if you don't get rid of it quickly, it can dissolve you in a matter of minutes. I fought until I was out of strength and sank, agonizing as if drowning in boiling oil, my screams of pain muffled by the pit until my last moment. For the second time that day, I died. Imagine my surprise when I woke up again, falling directly into the Black Lake. I don't remember how many times I suffered in that loop until I finally managed to escape, naked and with my legs red raw. Around me, collapsed buildings and filthy houses, uneven ground with sharp and jagged rocks everywhere I went, a black sky through which people fell constantly, and a foul air that weighs heavy and hurt to breathe. I could hear strange grunts, like those of a hyena. With fear gripping me, I followed my instincts and fled, running aimlessly with bare feet sinking into the ground towards the city. I could hear something following me, several things hunting me. They seemed to be enjoying the exercise. I don't know what was worse, not knowing where they were or what they looked like. In the distance, I could see what looked like the entrance to a subway. Without thinking, I ran, fear propelling my body, which only became heavier with each step. I could hear the painting of several creatures behind me. The flapping of wings and the cacophony of guttural laughter prevented me from looking back. The exhaustion was overwhelming, the pain indescribable. I stayed focused only on the subway, and maybe I could lose them down there. With one last effort, I threw myself down the stairs and was embraced by darkness. I crouched behind a bench and covered my mouth, trying to control my breathing. And with my eyes fixed on the stairs, I could clearly see the figure of the monster descending them. At first glance, its appearance reminded me of a skinless lion, but it was much larger than the king of the jungle. Its two pairs of eyes resembled those of a reptile, jaw opened wide, displaying 2 rows of uneven, sharp teeth, wings like those of a raven. Its 4 legs proudly displayed huge claws still stained with blood from its last hunt, and its tail was almost as large as its body, coated with a carapace and ending in a sharp point, reminiscent of a scorpion's stinger. I was too scared and tired to do anything other than be quiet and wait, hoping it would miss me. Too tired to realize that with its physique, catching a wounded prey shouldn't be difficult, and too tired to notice the dozens of others lurking in the darkness. Too tired to realize I had been led to its lair. As I was massacred by the pack, I could tell they were doing everything possible to keep me alive until the last moment. Cruelty was ingrained in their nature. As I fell once again towards the pitch pit, I finally noticed that every piece, every being in this place was made solely to agonize and torture, to cause pain and lamentation. As I died for the 3rd time in the same day, I came to understand the true nature of hell. Eventually, I managed to escape from the pit and the pack of hunters, fleeing far from the city, away from the buildings, and collapsed at the entrance of a cave. Guess this is a good stopping point for now. It's almost time for my job interview. A former convict chef gave me a chance to work at his burger joint. It's not the best, but I can't afford to be picky right now. Hell holds many dangers. If you find yourself there upon death, go as far away as possible from the tar pits. It's the favorite hunting ground for the scavengers. All right, here we are, back in the same dusty corner of the library. I'm starting to think I'm the only one who uses this computer. Better this way. I don't want to rush anything. I've lived decades with my senses on edge without being able to rest. I think I deserve some peace after all I've been through. Good news. I got the job. Frying burgers is as fun as it sounds, but hey, it pays for the room I'm staying in and leaves me with some change to eat. For now, I have nothing to complain about. My first week at work was easy compared to my first week in hell. I don't like suspense, so I'll cut to the chase. I had no clue what I was doing. When I woke up, I was thirsty and famished. I would eat those creatures if they weren't so terrifying. I've always liked to feel in control, and having backup plans for my backup plans. That's how it was in my company. That's how I was in my life. I've always been this way since school. It was what caught the attention of my now ex-wife. She said I had strong leadership traits, and that I was destined to lead people or some crap like that. I don't remember exactly, it's been centuries after all. The point is, for the first time in my life, well, now afterlife, I was completely lost. Naked, distressed, and injured, the full mortal package. Before wandering aimlessly, I needed to at least sort out the chaos that had taken over my mind. At this point, I had it right. If any of you end up in that place, just accept that you're screwed and try to make the best of it. Denial won't get you anywhere. I was dead. I was in hell. And for some reason, I could still die, but always came back to the same place. Those things. I definitely didn't want to see them again. So, in the end, I decided that the city was a horrible place, but where to go next? I needed clothes, food, and shelter. Peering through the mouth of the cave, I saw the place I had arrived in my desperation to escape those pits of torture. A gray plain with dead, twisted trees. They were as tall as pine trees, but all bore a hauntingly human shape in their trunks. I felt watched as I looked around. In the distance, the city still stood out among the throng of people descending upon its skyscrapers. At that moment, I wished so much to have escaped with someone. I've never been a very needy guy, but when the fear of the unknown embraces you, your primal instincts tell you to seek salvation in numbers. In truth, I was lucky not to have bumped into one of those psychos so soon. I just didn't know it yet. Without much choice, I slowly emerged from the cave and ventured deeper into the depths of the forest. Hell is strange. Its flora, fauna, and biomes have been meticulously engineered to cause stress and confusion in humans. Yet amidst it all, its inhabitants have found a way to adapt. As I walked through the corrupted forest, I could hear strange wails echoing through the wind. Sometimes they seemed to draw near, but there was never anything when I turned around. My throat longed for water. I was so tired. But I had to continue. Something was off with that place. I feared that if I fell asleep, I would turn into one of those weird trees and be stuck there until the end of times. So I kept walking. Even when the trees grew mouths that whispered promises of an eternal and blissful dream. Even when their branches became hands so gentle and charitable, only seeking companionship. They were so lonely, seeming to have waited millennia for me. Even when the earth became green and vibrant before my eyes, a small part of me resisted. I knew what it meant to accept all that beautiful lie. Somehow, I managed to make it through the forest in one piece. I know, what a lucky bastard. I found myself staring at the edge of a long, bubbling red river, its bank adorned with wooden stakes. To this day, I have no idea who made all that. The river flowed to the horizon, where I glimpsed the spire for the first time. Look, Dante's Inferno is nothing but a damned fanfic writer who inserted himself into his work and somehow echoed through history. But he got one thing right in that book. Hell is divided into levels. The spire is a colossal marble column that traverses the circles of hell. the only way to ascend or descend. Its silhouette is unmistakable, with protrusions resembling spikes jutting out from the sides, each with hundreds of feet in length, making it imposing no matter from which angle you see it. I had no idea at the time, but I was wandering through the welcome hall of the abyss, the second circle of hell. Lust. My first instinct was to pull one of the stakes from the ground and use it for my protection. I clung to that with all my sanity and felt lighter seeing that I had no means of defense. I continued walking along the bank in search of something and anything that could help me survive. From time to time, I would see the shadow of something large passing through the clouds and would throw myself to the ground, trying to blend into the dead grass and not be seen. The hunger was unbearable. I felt weak. Easy prey. I needed to eat. Nothing ever comes easy in hell. I was about to learn this the hard way. After hours of walking, I was greeted with something different in the dead landscape. A solitary bridge that allowed crossing the boiling river. Alongside it, a new sound came to my ears. The cry of a wounded beast. I tightened my grip on the spear and approached the structure. The bridge was quite rustic, a bit unstable, but it did its job well. Pieces of wood connected by ropes made from the hair of some creature. And in its midst, I saw, trying to reach the other side, with a broken leg and staining the loose planks with a grayish blood, a kind of gazelle. Her fur was white. She had 2 pairs of horns and eyes. She seemed, at times, to have difficulty breathing and grunting in pain as she moved forward. Desperation makes you do stupid things. Without thinking, I threw myself against the peculiar gazelle, driving my stake into her back and piercing her chest. She screamed in pain and fell onto the bridge with a wet sound. I remember smiling and thinking I could easily adapt to that place. After all, it was just a matter of being smart. I didn't know at the time that it wasn't just humans that hunted using bait. In the Book of Enoch, it's mentioned that angels fall from their celestial post to the present day. You might even think that being angels, they would be remnants of goodness in such a cruel place. But remember that just like most of those in Gehenna, they fell for a reason. I was so busy trying to carry the gazelle's body to the other side of the river that I didn't notice the shadow in the sky had returned and was coming towards me. The first thing I felt was its twisted beak tearing off a piece of my right shoulder and missing my head by inches. Screaming in pain, I turned to face my attacker and my heart nearly stopped. It was beautiful. Terrifyingly beautiful. A level of symmetry that shouldn't exist in this world. Its main body resembled that of a white horse, covered in hundreds of constantly moving eyes. Where its eyes would normally be, a golden ring sat, encircling its head and reflecting my horrified expression. On each of its legs, a small pair of black wings beat constantly, while its entire body emitted an intense glow that seemed to hold my eyes captive. But I felt it wasn't just that. Its body expanded through planes I couldn't see. Invisible hands massaged my head, trying to force their way into my mind. I stood there, incredulous and trying to process and trying to rationalize the divine beast hovering in front of me, ready for the next onslaught. With a piercing roar, the angel snapped me out of panic mode and I rushed to pull out my spear, but the tough carcass of the animal refused to surrender my weapon. Once again, I ran for my life. The other side of the river harbored a set of steep hills with slippery rocks emitting a faint smell of ammonia. The unknown had proved deadly, but between it and the wrathful angel, I decided to test my chances. Looking back, I couldn't see him anymore, but in my mind, I could feel an intruder, analyzing my thoughts, knowing the core of my being, predicting my movements. I felt a sharp pressure in my head. I couldn't escape. A being that doesn't need to touch you to kill you. Desperation and fear took over my body. and I just climbed. Among the rocks and dozens of hills, it was hard to find me, but he could feel me. I knew that. I could also feel him in my mind. I felt his fury, his anger. He told me everything he would do to me when he found me. In a sophisticated and forgotten language, but for some reason I understood. I just huddled among the rocks and cried, the danger increasing every minute. And in a ridiculous act of desperation, I prayed for mercy, which is the worst thing you can do with an angel nearby. It's like setting up a signal saying, "Hey, I'm here." After that, he easily found me. I thought I was going to die, but he wouldn't spare me from torment so easily. With his perfect, gleaming teeth, he grabbed me, and I was taken toward the spire, toward his nest. Angels are like cats. They love to play with their prey. I was bound to a rock on one of the protrusions of the spire, hundreds of meters from the ground. He would disappear for days, return, and slowly feed on me, relishing in my suffering. I thought I would be condemned to this for the next few years, and I would be, were it not for a fortunate surprise. One day, after a fruitful session of torture by my captor, I was awakened by gentle touches on my head. Before me, covered in dirty rags, boots made from the skin of some animal previously unknown to me, and a strange metallic mask, stood the first sinner I had seen in hell. The library is closing and this chair is killing my back, so I guess this is where I'll stop for today. Remember, hell is a deceitful place. Never let yourself believe in false promises of salvation. All right. Guess who has a personal laptop now and doesn't have to subject themselves to strange looks at the library? Now, I'll be able to post here more frequently and maybe properly answer your comments. A lot has happened this past week. I almost lost a finger trying to open a frozen pack of meat with an old knife, got enough money for a crappy computer and even a proper, slightly used bed. But before I delve into my horrible memories covered in sulfur, there are a few things I need to clarify. It was brought to my attention that even though I talk a lot about myself, I kind of forget to say anything about me. I guess a little introduction is long overdue. You all can call me Nate, short for Nathaniel. When I died, I was 35 years old. After that, I remained 35 for a few centuries. The concept of age loses its importance when you die, one of the few positives, I'd say. Without beating around the bush, I'm not a good person. If I were, all these posts wouldn't exist after all. Before I died, I would have never admitted to this. I was blinded by greed and pride. I probably would have said some bullshit like, I'm not evil, just realistic. In today's world, to stay on top, you must keep others down. I ask not to be glorified in any part of this. I remember several occasions that would make you realize what a shitty person I am, even though I'm currently trying to change. Anyway, we'll have plenty more time to talk about me after we get the important things out of the way. And today's post is important, so pay attention and remember, when the moon disappears in lust, beware the one who sings in the dark. The circle of lust is considered by many as the vestibule of the abyss. Almost all newcomers, with very few exceptions, fall into it when crossing the thin veil of reality upon death. It's essentially a mixed zone that combines with small samplings of everything the Nine Circles has to offer. An area mainly populated by low-caste demons, small fallen angels, and newcomers, most of whom are desperate for an exit and have no idea what to expect here. Therefore, lust is used as a hunting ground by various things, from demons to even humans. Perhaps if I had known how low humans had to sink to survive in that place, I would have been more cautious and wouldn't have suffered so much. It had been some time since I was taken from the clutches of my captor. Some flashes came to mind. The recurring torture sessions. That person appearing without any indication, the descent down the spire wall, where I was tied to their body like a backpack. Ugh, the path I was being led through was torturous. Ahead of me lay plains of obsidian covered by thin layers of ash. In the distance, a chain of twisted mountains stretched toward the sky. For a moment, I allowed myself to falter. I thought I was being rescued and taken to some kind of refuge. I imagined myself filling my belly with succulent meats, sleeping on a soft bed and quenching my thirst with pure crystalline water. Friends aren't tied up. When I noticed the tightly twisted wire in my hands and feet, I tried to protest, to throw myself off their back, to cut myself free, but I was terribly weak. The person carrying me noticed that I was awake. I still remember perfectly my first interaction with that sneaky son of a bitch. Look who woke up. You're very unlucky, you know. Angel's plaything the first few days. And they say I don't stand a chance in this place. I couldn't see his face behind all the claws, but I had the feeling he was smiling. Who are you? Where are you taking me? Oh, my, such rude fresh meat. Not even a hi or hello. Shit, I would accept a how was your day? It's not like you're being very polite. Hey, I'm a veteran, so I get a pass. Do you want to tell me where the hell you're taking me already? I'm not playing games with you, man. Oh, neither am I, young fella. You, my friend, are Jack's property now. You were on his turf, you know, so now he gets to do whatever he wants with you. Turf? I was being eaten alive by some horse monster creepy hybrid bird all the way up that giant thing. How does that constitute as his turf? Please, I just want to go home and see my wife. The dirty rat let out a laugh, interrupted by a horrible dry cough. A home? This is your home now, buddy. Haven't you realized yet, poor thing? That's why you became an angelic snack. There's not a single good screw in that empty head of yours. But don't worry. Even useless ones like you have a place in Jack's empire. Aw, just wait until I deliver you. He'll be so proud. Maybe he'll even give me my own wife. A little plaything just for me. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't free myself. Fatigue and hunger took their toll. All I could think about was this Jack character. I had no plans of being taken so easily, but until I recovered, there wasn't much I could do. For hours, we walked beneath the turbulent clouds of Gehenna. Occasionally, a cacophony of deep, uninterrupted cries would emerge in the distance. And during these moments, my new captor would lay still on the ground and cover himself with dust. Something was following us. My limited experience with infernal beings told me that we couldn't stay still. My heart raced every second we stayed there, exposed, motionless on the ground. But I dared not express my discontent. I feared that whatever that thing was, it could hear me and find us. At that moment, I was in a sea of emotions. Part of me relieved to have left the spire. Another part terribly scared of not knowing what fate awaited me at the end of our journey. It felt like I was out of the frying pan and into the fire. As we resumed our path, I noticed that, for the first time, the sky was clearing. We were far enough from the cursed city to escape its influence. Looking back, I could see the perfect, unnatural circle of clouds covering Gehenna and the surrounding areas. I could see insect-like beasts flying towards the city, drawn to it like moths to a flame, making it their lair, their hunting grounds, and forever home. But for some reason, I felt that going that far off the metropolis was equally dangerous. Maybe it was the stillness in the air. Maybe the messed up situation I found myself in. but all of my senses were on high alert and didn't seem to want to calm down anytime soon. The clear sky gave me my first ever vision of the moon, or if you want to follow the locals, the eye of the behemoth. A gigantic globe of flesh up in the sky. You stare at it too much and you figure out why they call it an eye. It seems to watch your every move once you're out of the city bounds, like some kind of twisted guard. My captor didn't seem to mind its presence, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it. The way it pulsated every once in a while. It felt alive and conscious. After some time walking, we got to some kind of camp made in haste. A few big loose rocks put together in a tent formation, an unlit bonfire, and what seemed to be beds made out of black leaves and ragged clothes. It didn't look comfortable at all. That rat threw me on the ground by the bonfire and sat inside the tent. Now, my dear fella, we'll wait for the other collectors, which might take a while, so behave, and no loud noises, got it? Or else your one-way ticket to the Silver City will have to be revoked, because you'll be dead. I'll cut your throat and eat you right here. Eat me? What kind of sick bastard are you? The kind that stays alive no matter what. And if you keep on babbling like that, I won't be the only problem you'll have to face. As if following a cue, the loud and deep cries of some creature echoed in the distance. I made sure to lower my voice after that. What the hell was that? Shut up if you don't want to find out. I wanted to ask about Jack, the Silver City, the collectors, but my fear spoke louder than my curiosity. So I just gave up and waited, not knowing what was hunting us in the dark. The eye was growing ever so slightly by the minute, its vision a constant reminder that safety was but an illusion, bound to break any time soon. As if confirming my fears, the eye once again began to change, this time growing darker and darker, as if its flesh was spoiling before my very eyes. Oh shit, not now! That moment, I knew we were in some deep shit. The sinner looked at me, considered something in his head, and gave up. Well, you're in luck, pal. I can't afford to let you die after all the trouble I went through just to get you here, he said, getting up in a hurry and pushing me inside the tent. What's happening? Why is the moon gone? Looking up, I couldn't see the moon anymore. I felt like it was still there somewhere, just so embraced by darkness it was impossible to find it. Bit by bit, a strange shadow descended from the sky and into the land. Everything was engulfed in a cold void. I couldn't see. I tried to speak, but was unable to hear my own voice. I couldn't even feel anything other than that cruel presence. I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was like I could feel its sadness. Something was circling the camp, taking gentle steps towards the middle. I was quivering. It was so cold that it hurt to breathe. I could barely think. And then, I heard it sing. The circle of lust houses one of the most dangerous of the 7 deadly sins, one of the biggest hunters of men and corrupters of heart. The succubus. Not a succubus. I'm talking about the original one. The primordial being that gave birth to the whole species. The one that still haunts the human plane. It was the inspiration for thousands of tales across the globe. The mermaid, the huldra, the liturg, all but facades of the same unholy being. The same one that chooses us as prey. When it sang, I felt like I was using cocaine for the first time again. The high was immediate and powerful. It came in waves, lifting me up into the sky, only to let me fall into despair. I needed her. I was nothing without her. I tried to fight, to free myself and run towards endless joy and pleasure, but something kept me from doing it. It started to sing louder and louder, getting angrier and sounding less angelic with each passing second. Suddenly, that dreamlike, almost orgasmic in nature state I was in changed into a complete nightmare. It was no longer asking, it demanded my surrender. My senses came back to me, only to bring me more pain. The first thing I saw was fire, covering my body and burning me alive. My skin was melting before my very eyes. My mind froze, trying to understand the creature outside the tent. The torso of a woman, hips and legs like those of a spider. Where its arms would be, two bat-like wings extended several feet in length. Its head reminded me of a perfect, genderless mannequin, except it had no eyes, no ears, or nose. Only one big circular mouth covering its entire face. Don't look at it, it'll break your mind. But it was already too late. It was getting tired of waiting. I could feel its wrath. It no longer wished to toy with us. Now, it was going in for the kill. My mind was buzzing. I felt a killer migraine getting worse and worse. I felt the urge to vomit, blood coming out of my nose. We were about to die. But then I heard a weird chant, followed by a deafening shot. The succubus screamed in pain, breaking the spell and rushing toward the newcomers. "You guys took your sweet fucking time, didn't you?" With my vision blurred, I could barely see the group standing on top of the hill. I was able to distinguish black robes and torches. Some were carrying rifles adorned with weird flowers. "Shut up and get your ass over here, Moss. We need to go now." Once again, I was being carried away from danger, the buzzing of shots still roaring in my ears. I could see other naked sinners, possibly newcomers like me, chained up on top of an old modded pickup truck, with spikes and plates of metal all around it. The last thing I remember before blacking out was the cry of pure rage from the succubus and a wave of pain passing through my body. I really need to start getting ready for my shift now, so I guess I'll stop here for today. In any society, communities exist to create hope, a better future and security for all. People get together to do the things they aren't able to do themselves. But in hell, as well as any other place, the corruption at the heart of humanity eventually breaks down every society, turning it into a play where only a selected few control the strings and make sure everything works toward fulfilling their sadistic dreams. Somehow, in the Silver City, things can get even worse. I was about to learn that. There's something up here with me. Since I returned to the world of the living, I've been doing my best to become an active member of society again, and try and earn my ticket to heaven in the meantime. Even though I can't afford this luxury right now, I always donate a portion of my salary to charity, do volunteer work on weekends, and help out at a community kitchen on Thursdays after work. All of this is to avoid going back there. But I don't know how well this can work, nor do I know if by gaining this new life, I also received a new chance. There's something I haven't told you. The truth is that my torment hasn't completely stopped. Since I returned from the dead, my nights are filled with agony and terror. The nightmares are terrible, but when I wake up shrouded in the darkness of my room, I can discern things in the shadows. Arachnid-like forms with dozens of eyes and mouths that sing profanities. Throughout the day, I can still see them, in the corner of my eye, almost like a permanent silhouette. A reminder that they're watching me, just waiting for my last breath to take me back via the VIP express lane. I think Samael didn't like being deceived one bit. Now, however, it's not the time to recount my escape. There are still many dangers I've yet to warn you about. And if after your death, you find yourself wandering through the infernal circles, surely at some point you'll come across the Silver City, the last vestige of community in hell. Gehenna is like a living structure, a fabric composed of buildings, streets, and alleys that stretches vertically through the 9 circles that compose the abyss. When I died, I arose just like many others in lust, the 3rd circle of hell, contrary to what Dante claimed. The real order of the circles would be limbo, greed, lust, wrath, gluttony, heresy, violence, treachery, and finally pride. The goal of the collectors was set like a jewel in the center of limbo. It's funny. In Dante's work, the city is portrayed as a paradise away from heaven for those with good hearts who never accepted Jesus into their lives. Their only punishment would be to never glimpse the face of God. Damn, I wish it was like that. I woke up with the metallic taste of blood still in my mouth. A gentle voice was saying something, but with my ears ringing, I couldn't make out anything. I could tell there was something in front of me. The smell was good. My stomach reminded me I was yet to eat anything. Without much choice, I accepted the charity and ate. The taste was surprisingly good. If I were to describe it, it's something close to pork. I spent some time just eating and recovering. I was even given a canteen of warm water. It tasted weird, but it's not like I was going to complain. As my senses returned, I could understand what the young man in front of me was saying. I still remember his face, without any bruises, a shallow beard, and a glimmer of hope that didn't match the place at all. Feeling better now? I guess. Where are we now? Is that thing still here? I tried sitting up, but a sharp pain in my chest stopped me from moving. Hey, take it easy now. You're so skinny you look like a twig. When was the last time you ate? About 10 seconds ago. He smiled a bit. Well, at least you're good enough to enjoy the ride. With that, I felt prompted to look around, and finally noticed that we were on the back of a strange pickup truck. Not only that, some sort of locomotive seemed to form around us. In total, there were 4 vehicles. Our pickup stood at the center, with metal plaques around its frame and sharp grates on the ends confining us. On our left, an old Mustang suffered to keep itself close traveling on such uneven terrain. On our right, I could see Mice on top of an old motorcycle giggling to himself. I silently wish he crashed. Leading the group ahead, I could see the rear of a black van, and finally, following behind, I saw what appeared to be a Honda with smashed windows and covered in dents. Where are they taking us? I have no idea, but anything must be better than these fields. Recalling Mice's delusions, I wasn't so sure about that. Who are you? Are you with them too? I think we're in the same boat, buddy. The last guy who called me buddy tied me up and dragged me into the clutches of a monster. I don't like them one bit, but from what I saw when we arrived, he was trying to protect you. So you really are one of them. I already said we're in the same shithole. I got caught by the masked one while trying to hunt dinner, he said, pointing out the window towards the driver of the pickup, a tall, muscular man wearing a strange wooden mask. Sorry the past few days have been so... God, if you only knew what I've been through. The young man chuckled sincerely. Friend, I'm sure whatever you've been through, I've lived it 12 times already. The name's John. Nice to meet you. Well, John, you can call me Nate. I'd shake your hand, but I nudged towards the wires on my hands. Could be worse. He gestured towards his feet. They were chopped off. Holy shit, I'm sorry, John. These guys are insane. Don't be. They'll be back once I die. But I have a feeling they won't let that happen so soon. We could already see the spires slowly coming into view on the horizon. You sound used to all of this. Don't tell me. You're new. I still can't believe this is all real. You better come to terms with it fast. This place don't take pity on the weak, he said. We didn't feel like chatting after that. I wanted to ask about what I was given to eat, but something told me I'd be better off not knowing. We traveled far towards the spire, Gehenna slowly embracing us with its dark skies. From up close, I was able to see an opening in the base of the spire. The twisted terrain of the fields gave way to broken roads and dusted buildings, and screams of despair found their way back to my ears as we passed near the tar pits. Haunted by memories of my arrival, I couldn't help but search for the beasts that mauled me in the confusing streets of the city. I don't know if it was because of the sound of the engines or the size of our group, but I didn't see them among the wreckage and alleyways. As we approached the spire, a strange icy breeze embraced us. The shock was so intense that I lost my breath, trembling as I noticed a thin layer of ice forming rapidly on the pickup truck. Try to control your breathing, it'll pass soon. What is this now? Specters. As we finally reached the center of lust, I realized we weren't alone. The base of the spire held an immense arched opening from which a dark interior was barely visible. Above the entrance, crucified on the wall, I saw a man. The slight movement of his head and his blue eyes made my stomach churn. The culprits for the sudden cold gathered below the man in desperation. There were dozens of them, humanoid beings emitting a faint glow and seeming to levitate. Their cries echoed through the city, spreading along with their icy presence. The man only watched them, one by one, but said nothing. He seemed to be judging them. The engines shut off, and one by one the collectors descended from the vehicles. Mice was the first to approach. The specters recoiled from him like cockroaches fleeing from light. He then looked the man in the eyes, bowed, and said, "Oh, Aeacus, King of Gehenna. My heart is not pure for rest, my eyes are blind to injustice, and my fists only wave for my desires. From dust I came, and to dust I return. My soul judged to forever burn, so I beg you to open the doors to my torment." The man's eyes locked onto Mice for a moment. Then his lips whispered something in an elaborate tongue, and the darkness of the entrance turned into a scarlet mass. I didn't know about the kings back then. Aeacus is the easiest to convince. He oversees the higher circles. They say if you're under Minos's gaze, however, I hope you enjoy the lower circles because he's unlikely to grant you passage. And if you're a special kind of unlucky, I suggest you don't even try to approach Radamanthus unless you want a one-way ticket to Pride. The collectors then pulled us out of the cars, displaying us like trophies in an organized line. I had to support John on my shoulders. Otherwise, they would have made him crawl the rest of the way. From the other cars, a few more people emerged. Other unfortunate souls with the same destination as mine. I saw a beautiful woman with short red hair and brown eyes. She was injured with several cuts on her back. The collector taking her out of the van seemed pleased. I tried not to dwell on it too much. She stared at me intensely, looking scared. A man had to be forcibly removed from the Honda by two collectors. He was big and strong, dark-skinned with furious eyes. long braids cascading from his head to the middle of his back, a terrible scar showing on his left arm. To this day, I have no idea how they managed to capture that bastard. Later, he would tell me that they didn't get him until after he'd taken down some of them. Finally, an old man with a band over his eyes was pushed into line. He looked so worn down that I thought I would see him turning to dust at any moment. Mice then made his way to the entrance and was swallowed by the mass. The collectors forced us to enter. One by one, I saw everyone being pushed into the unknown. Looking around, I tried to think of something, some escape route. "Don't do anything stupid. It won't work," John whispered in my ear. I thought about throwing him at them and running for my life. I didn't know him. Didn't know a damn thing about him except his name. A glance at the collector's weapon made me change my mind. I wouldn't get far, even if I did find an opening. Finally, my turn came. With the weight of John still on my shoulders, I walked to the entrance with my heart pounding in fear. The mass that filled it seemed to react to me, stretching to cover my body. The scarlet glow blinding me as the collectors urged me to hurry. I reached out my hand and felt a slight resistance, almost like touching cold gelatin. I felt it pulling me, and before my head was completely swallowed, I held my breath. My body was warm. It was like being bathed in soup. Every exposed inch of my skin burning, but the agony was only beginning. I felt that strange mass invading me, entering through my nose, ears, and eyes. It hurt. I tried to scream, but my lungs were filled with the alien substance that forced its way through my organs. I felt like I was about to lose consciousness. A shockwave ran through my body. I felt as if I was being torn into 1,000 pieces and reformed, my consciousness used as a child's toy. And then it was spat out. I barfed on the gray grass that solemnly clung to me. John lay beside me, eyes rolled back, red fluid still trickling from his mouth. I didn't have time to worry about him. Before me, proudly stood what could only be described as a monument of sin. Far from the light of hope it once was, now taken and calloused, abused and defiled by the filthy ideals of the damned scum. Its golden streets don't shine. Its security only harbors hate. Its cracked walls don't protect, they only confine. Even though I didn't know much about hell, didn't know its history or care about its purpose, I could see in that moment that I was looking at the greatest disrespect to the sacred that could exist. An empire built with blood and erected by desire. The Silver City opened its gates to me, with the intention of never letting me go again. The other collectors arrived, and one by one, we were introduced to the next 40 years of our lives. The memories of this city are painful. I tried to ditch this shit given the purpose of it all, but a drag is necessary if I'm really going to recall the decades I spent under that tyrant's rule. Passing through the rusty gates, the lower city is the first thing you see. Jack leaves this region of the Silver City for his merchants to sell their findings in the lower circles, where everywhere you look, prostitutes and slaves accompany the more fortunate. Jack's personal guard takes advantage of his authority to get everything they want without spending a penny, of course. Linked to the lower city by a rudimentary elevator, the pleasure zone casts its glow over those below. A neighborhood where the best drinks, drugs, and alterations can easily be found. The hunters and collectors usually walk around there, spending their earnings to calm their vices and complaining about their king's insane demands. But by far, the most striking sight is a castle covered in soot, built at the highest level of the city, where only Jack's personal circle can tread without being summoned. That's exactly where we were being taken. John was still unconscious, being carried by our captors. As we walked under the guns, naked and defenseless, the malicious glares of the vendors assessed us as new merchandise. My feet ached. Full of blisters, I couldn't feel my hands anymore. looking at a toothless man being pulled by a chain around his neck. I wondered if that would be my fate. Desperation was beginning to consume me. We ascended to the pleasure zone by elevator, the same one powered by the brute force of several slaves harnessed to the wall, their hands raw from continuous and repetitive effort. The hallucinogenic fumes from the laboratories filled the street of the neighborhood. I felt my heart race, my skin tingle, and a sweet smell invading my mind. The woman accompanying us seemed to recognize the substance as she lunged towards the source of the vapors. Mice kicked her in the stomach, making her kneel, grabbed her by the hair, and laughed. "You addict, you've used this shit before, haven't you? Look at the way you're trembling. If they don't send you to the brothel, I might have an idea what to do with you." She didn't seem to understand or care, drooling from her mouth and experiencing small spasms as the drug filled her lungs. Wish I could say I avoided it, but this shit is strong. Within a few minutes, I was almost as high as when the succubus attacked. We then walked through the alleyways towards a staircase carved in marble. A sinner was overdosing against the steps. Mice shot him in the head and threw him aside. One moment he was alive, and the next, the remnants of his brain adorned the ground. I gasped for air, my vision darkening. I meant nothing to them. They could dispose of me whenever they wanted. I felt like I was going to die. I felt like I was going back to the tar pits, seeing myself suffering and being devoured for ages, running only to be captured, no rest, no warning. What kind of being would create such a rotten place? Why did he have the right to read my soul and throw me towards this flaming lake? It's not fair. It's sick. As I climbed the stairs, stepping on the remnants of the sinner's mind, I wondered if God was watching me at that moment. Maybe he was having fun. The biblical hell holds a king. It shelters demons and powerful beings born from darkness itself. And, as you already know, beings made by the Creator's own hand. It wouldn't be at that moment that I would meet Samael, but alongside the self-proclaimed human king, I met his right-hand beast. When the doors of the castle opened, I fell to my knees on the ground. An angelic figure with the aura of pure evil. A feminine body, dressed in white adorned with jade. 3 pairs of long and golden wings kept her hovering a few meters above the ground. On her face, a twisted helmet with an eternal black flame at its peak, portraying what was, what is, and what will come. The base of her helmet completely covers her eyes, squeezing them with such force that blood constantly drips to the ground. Her face constantly changes. A slender young woman, a frightened child, an irritated elder, a black goat, a hungry tarantula, an unnamed beast, an indescribable void. In her hands, a chain hangs a clock, which constantly moves, which moves constantly. It tries to guess the hour that only he knows. Constantly wrong, corrects itself, recoils, recalculates, wrong, corrects itself, recoils, recalculates, wrong. Such a beautiful creature fell alongside the morning star with 1/3 of the stars to forever hate us, to extinguish everything and everyone. Who was I compared to such perfection? Who was I compared to such obscenity? I felt broken. I felt complete. Terrified. Emancipated. 1,000 mouths saying in 1,000 languages in my mind, all equally correct, all equally wrong. The duality that leads to madness. In my heart, he introduced himself. Astaroth, the Grand Duke of Hell. With a flick of his hand, he disappeared, but I still felt him watching us, assessing us. Seated on a broken throne, there was the face of control. Almost as tall and robust as my captured companion, a short, defined beard adorned a ruthless face marked by battles. Gray hair and a leather cloak, a silver medallion around his neck, and a shining red ring on his left hand, eating grapes like a Greek emperor. Jack graced us with his presence. Mice once again took the initiative. "Oh, my lord, we have found a fresh meat of the highest quality to expand your empire, mostly young and strong, and the old one is wise and knows the ancient rituals." Jack looked at us as if we were worms, evaluating us like a spoiled child receiving gifts at Christmas. "You bring me trash and expect gratitude. If this is what you consider good quality, perhaps it's time to revoke your position." Jack's ring began to glow, and I felt Astaroth's strong presence growing. Mice quickly knelt and spoke once again. "Oh, my king! One of them appears to be marked." Mice then looked at me with a malicious smile, sending a shiver down my spine. Jack observed me, the disdain in his eyes palpable. He seemed to notice something at that moment, scratched his beard, and smiled. "Oh, mice, I can always count on you to keep me entertained. Take him to the pit. Send the others to the dungeon. There may be something useful in this batch after all." Before I could protest, I was struck on the head with the butt of a gun, and I lost consciousness. Sorry, I need a moment. Just remembering the terrible nights I spent in that place makes me feel sick. Man, I hope smoking doesn't count as too big of a sin. When I woke up, I was chained to a wooden pillar by the neck, with several other sinners chained around me. The place was poorly lit, and I could smell feces and urine. They didn't even release us to go to the bathroom. In front of me, Jack stood with 2 guards. "Ah, good morning, Sleeping Beauty. I'm sorry to disturb your rest, but I have some questions, and if you cooperate, you may find yourself involved in something much bigger and more important than your miserable afterlife." "Screw you. I've seen things your people do. You're all crazy. I don't want anything to do with you." Jack's ring began to glow, and Astaroth's silhouette became visible even in the deep darkness. "For your own good, I hope you learn to have good manners. Now tell me, where is he?" "What?" The ring glowed, and Astaroth entered my mind. The concept of emptiness is terrifying. Non-existence. It's dreadful. Emptiness occupied existence before everything existed. In the beginning, there was nothing. And then, there was God. My consciousness faded away. I felt the void corrupting my flesh prison. It's not a lack of senses. It's nothing. Sounds didn't vanish, they turned into nothingness. Along with sensations, memories, my existence. I was completely devoured. I wanted to scream, but there was no voice, no will. I wanted to exist, but there was never even an I. I vanished completely, and then I was catapulted back into existence, where I could feel everything. The infinite, it destroys. Through Astaroth's eyes, I understood, not even in 1,001 lives could I touch 1% of the truth. My brain burned, flooded with everything that was, everything that would come. I cried, I screamed. Agony drove me to madness. Time made no sense anymore. And then everything stopped. In despair, I screamed. I cried like a child. Jack embraced me with the tenderness of a mother as I collapsed into his chest. He gently stroked my head while speaking softly. Poor thing. So much suffering, so much lamentation. Pain is a choice, and I don't want it for you. I love you. I love all my possessions from the bottom of my heart. I only want what's best for you. But for that, I need your help. I want your pain to stop. Help me make it stop. You just need to tell me where is he? I didn't want to return to nothingness. I didn't want to suffer with knowledge. Desperately, I lied. I said I knew where whoever he was looking for was. I would show him. He just had to let me go. Jack acquired a sad expression, gently lifted my face and said, "Oh, child, why do you lie to me?" With the scarlet glow of the ring, once again I ceased to exist. Catapulted between two extremes, blood streaming from my ears, I laughed, I cried, I begged. All to make it stop. For him to remove that being from the room. I just wanted peace. I felt my cells giving up, exploding and restructuring, and memories were erased and returned, lived 1,000 times per second. My wife, my daughter, the drugs, the betrayal, the accident, the body, the hospital, the fall. Once again, everything stopped. I spat blood on Jack's cloak, who asked me again, "Where is he? Come on, damn it, just tell me. He mocked you, he touched you. Come on, where the hell is Samael? Tell me and I'll leave you alone." I pleaded. I tried to tell him that I didn't know who he was talking about. I promised obedience, my life, anything for mercy. Once again, he sent me to the void. For countless nights, the cycle repeated itself. I have no idea how long I was tortured in that place. Eventually, Jack began to use me in other ways. My days were divided between slave labor in the lower city and nights of torment in Jack's palace. At the time, I didn't understand how he couldn't see that he was wrong. Clearly, there was nothing special about me. I couldn't lead him to Samael. I was just a damned soul who could barely endure the first days in the abyss. I just hadn't realized that Jack already had the certainty that I was different. After all, how could I be a nobody if Astaroth couldn't exact the truth from me, and they had to resort to torture? Hope vanished from my chest. I didn't know if I would ever escape from there, if I would see John again before my soul was corrupted by the Grand Duke. The years dragged on, and Jack's fury only grew. Fortunately for me, in my 4th year in the Silver City, I gained a new cellmate, the old man who had been brought in the same group as me. Little did I know that he would be my first clue to the way out of here. I'm tired of remembering those horrible years, so I think I'll stop here for today. Clinging to hope in hell is as useless as using petrol to put out a fire. You'll only end up dying either way. But in the realm of insanity, it might not be all that crazy to think there might be a way out of the suffering. Hey guys, I'm back. I apologize for the long period without news. I received an unexpected visit, and because of it, I was bedridden for quite some time. I'm grateful that my boss saw everything happen. Saw what he thought was happening, and assured me that I would receive financial assistance while I recover. Did you know that if you don't have most of your documents, the hospital bombards you with questions? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? It's a shame I didn't think of that while I was being taken there. I could have jumped out of the car and avoided the headache. Jokes aside, the last few weeks have brought me the answers. Maybe I have a chance to correct some mistakes. Maybe all of this wasn't just a desperate act to gain favor with the Lord. This place has been much more useful than I anticipated. Today's post is most important because I finally had the chance to talk about the most precious information one can have when condemned to the abyss. How to escape it. But before I start walking through my memories, I need to tell you guys how I ended up in this miserable state. In short, I got into a fistfight with an angel. And if you think I got all busted up, you should see the other guy. As I mentioned in my last post, beings from the depths of Tartarus have been haunting me since my escape. Jailers of rotting flesh, insectoids with multiple faces that recount countless insults to my person. With focus and meditation, I can ignore them during the day, endure them at night, and pray not to encounter them in my dreams. Although this last one always seems to happen, I usually manage to carry on with my life relatively well. I just didn't know that hell wasn't the only realm keeping an eye on me. With that in mind now, I should have noticed that something was wrong. I've been having strange encounters. A taxi driver who, instead of taking me to my apartment, guided me without me noticing to the nearest Catholic church and vanished with the car as quickly as he arrived. A lady in the park who watched over me throughout the period I spent enjoying my late afternoon near the lake. I don't remember the color of her eyes, but something tells me she had more than one pair. And the most recent one, a beggar who threw me against the wall as I exited through the back of the burger joint with my boss. I couldn't see him arrive because he wasn't there initially. It's as if he had materialized from thin air in a matter of seconds. I remember opening the door and heading towards the gutter. Then an unbearable heat enveloped my body for a brief moment, and I was thrown against the wall. At first, I thought it was just a random bum trying to rob me, but the spectral glow in his eyes, the way reality slightly warped around his body, and his voice that echoed in my mind like the roar of a beast told me otherwise. I panicked. You see, I'm doing everything I can to avoid setting foot in Gehenna again. Until that attack, I clung to the comforting fact that I'm out of that prison and that they can't hurt me anymore. So, when one of the soldiers from the celestial ranks pushed me against the wall, wrapping his heavy hands around my neck, A primordial fear crumbled my will. I could barely struggle as he roared in my mind. To dust thou returned, and cannot stay here. Thy soul, stained by the ashes of hell, is marked by the blood of the star. In thee he sees a way out. In thee the holy sees a mistake. In his eyes, I could recognize pity and hatred. He saw me as something so small and fragile, something to be protected from the claws of sin. One of the Creator's toys that had been so rudely broken and was now fighting against the rules that guide existence. In his own words, a mistake. One that needed to be fixed. Even with such a fragile appearance, his strength was tremendous. He squeezed my throat while whispering apologies in my mind. I could see demons approaching in the darkness, ready to grasp my soul in my final moments. My heart racing, my mind almost devoid of oxygen. I could no longer think straight. I was going to die. I stretched my arms against the wall. Anything would do, any way to defend myself. My hand closed around something cold and heavy, and with all my strength, I pulled. Adrenaline is a powerful drug. I managed to wrench one of the rusty bars from the window and hit him with all I had. The blow sent him into the street, where a van ran over him shortly after. My boss insists that I had a panic attack and that in my altered state, I ended up throwing a loose iron rod at a school van, scaring some poor kid shitless, before fainting on the ground. This brings me many questions. Now, more than ever, I feel paranoid, watched, and knowing that people wouldn't even know if I were being attacked terrifies me. I feel like my time is running out, and something horrible is about to happen. So, without further ado, I must fulfill my purpose, and at least help you while we still walk in the same plane. Hell is a place of torture and punishment. The reward our sins earn us in the afterlife, but it's also a prison. It's not just for the sinners who wander the circles in search of a light that has long rejected them, but also for the original evil, the serpent that hissed hatred long before humanity even dreamed of existing. The being forged when the Creator and the original angels still roamed the cosmos, shaping and expanding it. He was once God's favorite, but has since fell with a third of the stars. The one who commands faithful followers both on earth and in the depths. The concept of time in hell is complicated. Some circles distort your perception, and 2 hours can suddenly become 2 minutes. Combine this with the lack of natural light and claustrophobic confinements, and you will see that most of the slaves in the Silver City go through years like zombies, one day indistinguishable from the next, unaware if they've been there for a day or a decade. In my 4th year as Jack's torture toy, this condition was affecting me aggressively. Over the years, Jack had opened my schedule, allowing me to work under the orders of some of his followers in other regions of his kingdom, still confined behind the walls and never seeing the light of day. My schedule was cruel and irregular, so much so that even today, I must admit that I am not confident in stating that only 4 years have passed. In the morning, Astaroth would play with my mind. I lived 1,000 lives with 1,000 deaths. The profane void and the painful light of the vastness, my mind reduced to ashes, and then expanded beyond the confines of my skull. Immediately after, I was blindfolded and taken to the pleasure zone, where I was forced to synthesize drugs and beverages from the blood of beasts and fungi. In the floor directly below one of the main sales points of the Scarlet Maiden, the most purchased drug in the city, I worked for hours grinding and heating, accumulating terrible blisters and burns while my mind was numbed by the aroma and visions. In a hot and cramped room, I was joined by 5 other slaves, and there we spent most of the day. Deaths from overdose were common. Some fell from excessive work, others were killed for pure pleasure. Our guards were always incredibly high and enjoyed mistreating us to maintain their sense of power. Pawns so low in the hierarchy of the infernal king, probably venting years of spite in our daily sessions. From time to time, the owner of the operation would come down to check the quality of the product, which was never refined enough, and would punish us for it. By order of the king, he wouldn't lay a hand on me, but he made me watch and often forced me to participate in the torture of my colleagues. Fingers cut off, teeth pulled out, hot iron spikes on the backs of those who spilled even a gram of his precious product. The things I was forced to do still keep me awake. And always accompanying him, I saw her. Unfortunately for mice, the girl brought with me did not meet her end in his perverted arms, but in the hands of one of Jack's captains. Always with a distant look, drugged beyond her limit, following her master like an obedient dog. Occasionally, she would watch me with a hint of sanity in her eyes. While her master punished us, she often tried to approach me, but always without success. When the work was done, I was put to sleep with gas and woke up again imprisoned in the palace catacombs, ready to endure another session of agony before sleep. Day after day, this insanity continued. My long-diminished hope was exhausted. I became a shadow, a shell of my former self, ready to follow the next order, begging for mercy that was never granted. This cycle continued until one particular night, when I woke up again below the castle, chained to the wall, with a decrepit old man beside me. For some reason, Astaroth had let me rest that night. I should have suspected something was wrong. In the darkness, his face was hard to discern. I remember terrible dark circles, short and damaged gray hair. His eyes were sunken, pulling you in like ocean waves, his lips cut, and what seemed to be terrible gashes on his neck. "So, it's true?" the old man murmured, breaking the silence. "What are you talking about?" "I've heard that madmen's ravens many times, but this sounds different. There's some ground that supports the theory this time." "I don't have time for the ramblings of a senile old man." "Do you really have the mark of the beast?" I stared into his eyes, recalling the same claim coming from my captor's mouth. That mark! Up until then, I thought it was just an excuse that bastard mice used to save his own neck, one that had cost me 4 years of confinement. But there was a fearful weight in the old man's voice. His words carried a sense of truth. "What is this damn mark? Ever since I set foot in this city, I've been treated like merchandise. My mind is scourged night after night because of this shit. You're all mistaken. You're wasting your time. Leave me alone." "Haven't you noticed anything strange, young man? Well, just a bunch of damn souls in hell. But don't you feel that your stay has been particularly difficult? As if the very grounds fight to keep you here?" I've listened to the ramblings of the collector who found you. You were captured by an angel, weren't you? That doesn't usually happen. Something attracted it, just like the succubus, just like the beast. I'm just a wretched soul. There's nothing more to it. I'm only getting what I deserve. I should have been patient. Holly didn't deserve that, but she was going to tell everything. She was going to show the photos, and I was going to lose my job, my damn family, my house. I saw no other way, and now I'm paying for it. Nothing more, nothing less. Oh, do you really think that's all there is to it? So many here with souls far more rotten than yours, yet still surrounded by pleasure and power. If hell worked as you think, why would Jack have what he has? Why would sinners be able to raise such a heresy as this metropolis? I don't know, damn it. I just want all of this to end. I just want to go home. In the moments that followed, the old man pondered something in his mind, looking avidly into the darkness, fearing we were being watched. And then he said calmly, "I know a way out." Despair is dangerous. The lack of a path, of a light, brings out the worst in humanity. Surrounded by the eternal dark, I was presented with a way out of torment, and it was as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Don't say anything. Just listen to me. If what I've heard about you is true, there's a chance. But I'll only tell you everything if you promise to take me with you. I'll withhold details as we travel to make sure you don't betray me. You'll do everything I say, how I say it, and when I say it. Well, the deal is off. Wait, travel? To where? The ninth circle of hell, of course, where the one who mocked you is eagerly waiting. There, he holds a passage to a higher plane, where perhaps one can attain a new body. A shock ran through my heart. A new body? A way out of here? Even if all of this is true, how do you suppose we escape from here? It's not like Jack will suddenly repent of his sins and set us free overnight. That part I'll leave to you. Think of it as a test of your abilities. If you can get us out of here, it will serve proof that you can handle the journey to the depths of the abyss. If we get caught, I'll know I was wrong about you. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. I couldn't sleep either. How could I? My mind was restless with the possibility of salvation, an escape route from all the pain, a new chance at life. I just needed to get us out of there, but how? Trapped in the catacombs without even the grace of seeing the city? I had no idea what things were like on the surface. I couldn't formulate a plan. At least, not alone. Patiently I waited, the days passing by, torturous and merciless. But in that moment, I had gained a frightening resilience. With something to cling to, hope had flourished again. I thought not even the corrupted shadows of the city could shake me anymore. Damn, was I wrong. Finally, the day I had been waiting for arrived. You see, with so many slaves falling from excessive work and cruelty, an exchange would happen from time to time, and some familiar faces would appear when I was lucky. On that day, when the blindfold was removed, I had to hold back from showing my happiness. In the laboratory with me was John, tied to a wooden table in the corner, grinding fungi with a leather mask, and in the middle, cracking open beasts' skulls with a giant hammer, was the gigantic man who had been captured with me. A long day followed, the smell of sweat, blood, and drugs intensifying with each passing hour. My eyes were keenly watching the movement of the guards, restless and anxious. It was almost a daily ritual, the moment they secretly entered the stockroom to evaluate the quality of the product. Precious few minutes when we were left alone. As always, the guards grew tired of the trembling and tapping feet and retreated to the stockroom, threatening us with the loss of our eyes if we told anyone. As soon as the door closed, I got up and went directly to John. As naturally as I could, I put on the leather mask and pretended to help him with the fun guy while whispering by his side. "I don't have time to explain, but I might be able to get us out of here, and I need your help to do it." His callous hands stopped working, dropping the equipment on the table. "What? Nate, is this true?" "Don't turn to me, keep working." Slowly, he returned to mashing the fun guy and sorting them into small bags. He was trembling, making mistakes. Hope and hell can easily shake anyone. "What do you need?" "Information. You work outside too, don't you?" "Selling everything to the addicts who come from the lower city. But I don't know if I trust my life to anything that comes out of their mouths." "That's something already. I need to know everything, even if it doesn't seem important. Please, tell me. Maybe we can." A heavy hand landed on my shoulder. That behemoth of a person was standing right behind me. He had heard everything. Even with the constant cacophony of the equipment, the incessant blabbering from the upper store, and the lower tone of our voices, he had listened. He knew we were trying to escape. "I want in." "What?" "A cripple in a pile of sticks. There's no way in hell you two are escaping this city without my help. If you want to do this, I'm coming along. If not, the guards will have a nice little surprise when they come back." I could hear footsteps approaching. His expression made his intentions clear. I had no other choice at the moment but to include him in the team. "Damn it, fine. Information as much as you can get. When we meet here in the lab, we'll share everything we've discovered. Once we have a plan, we start taking action." The door opened, and the soldiers entered, still with their masks down and their noses full of powder, each of us quietly in our respective places. In the following weeks, with the extra help, I was able to learn a lot about the flow of drugs and weapons in the city. The Greek god of a man is named Yuri, and when he's not in the lab, he spends his days carrying metal plates to the lower city until his feet bleed. With him, we discovered that about twice a month, the collectors go out in droves through the gates toward Lust in search of fresh meat, and taking with them an absurd amount of metal to supply the numerous outposts scattered throughout the circle. John had discovered that a significant portion of the merchants in the pleasure zone used this expedition to transport a large part of their stock to the higher circles right under Jack's nose. On the night before the group's departure, the master's most valued slaves are chosen to carry box after box to a certain warehouse in the lower city. There, the collectors take their share of the deal and hide the goods in their cars before the day begins. The collectors' parts are properly marked, and the rest is supposedly not opened. In the darkness of the dungeon, my mind began to formulate a plan. If we could find a way to stay in the lab until the end of the shift, we might be able to infiltrate the merchandise and escape the Silver City through the front gate. There were still many problems. The merchandise was moved at night, precisely when we were taken to our respective dormitories. Our absence would surely be noticed, and how on earth were we supposed to even know which box would be moved to the warehouse and which would be sold the next day? If we were to do that, we needed more information, but we also needed to be quick. Up until that point, since the old man's arrival, Astaroth and Jack had left me alone. If they decided to do another torture session, the Archduke of Hell would claim domain over my mind again and know exactly what I was planning to do. I shivered, thinking about what horrors would await me after that. Each night before bed, I updated the old man on the progress of my plan, asking for details on exactly how we would escape from that cursed plane when we reached the 9th circle. But that bastard never said anything, just looked at me, waiting for my next move. Afraid of losing the precious window that had opened for me, I foolishly decided that it would be better if we acted quickly and forced fate to smile upon us for a change. When I woke up in the laboratory the next day, I took advantage of the guards busy screwing with their own minds to tell my colleagues the plan. It was insane. But what in that pit of despair was coherent? On rare occasions, the old man graced us with his presence in the laboratory because of the agreement he had to come along. I gave the excuse that he knew of a safe place where we could rest if we managed to escape. It wasn't convincing, but what other choice did they have but to accept? When the four of us were working together, we would act. And thanks to John, I found out that we didn't always work the day shift in the laboratory. Every other day, we spent entire nights in that damned cramped place. If we caused a distraction, we could use the panic to invade the stockroom and hide among the merchandise that would be mislaid. The slaves would take us to the warehouse, and from there, we would rely on luck for them to be too busy searching for us in the upper city to find us. We would have to leave before Jack was notified of our escape. With Astaroth by his side, there was no place in the city where we could hide. Luckily, nobody wants to be the one to bring bad news to the psycho. With the plan set, we began to act, having no idea the self-appointed King of Hell was already well aware of our actions. The day I escaped from the Silver City was also the day I officially gave up my humanity while in hell. Hatred, anger, they consume the heart of everyone, from the purest to the most honorable. Not that I'm anywhere close to being either of those things. Even to this day, I still feel dirty, undeserving to be here now, and I know it all too well. But still, I do not regret the things I did to survive. The plan had started well, with all of us together in the laboratory feeling anxious with every passing second, my stomach churning, my hands trembling. I didn't know how to act normally anymore. Didn't want to raise suspicions, so I hyper-focused on my work, waiting for the end of the shift. Cutting mussels from beasts, roaring ground fungus powder with a meat-like texture, slowly being numbed by the sweet aroma that always hung in the laboratory. The sound of footsteps upstairs had been considerably reduced. One of the signs at the shop was about to close. I looked at Yudi and nodded. You know, the strange fungus that grows in the walls of the city has some interesting characteristics. They call it dead man's fiber. And to the touch, it's like touching a wrinkled skin. When ground and heated, a strange reaction causes it to become slimy and acidic. Sticking to human muscle, it devours it, generating a byproduct in the form of orange powder, the unrefined form of Scarlet Maiden. In this state, the drug is highly unstable, and upon contact with water, it rapidly increases its temperature, which can give you horrible burns. Or, if there's a sufficient amount, an explosion. Throughout the next day, little by little, we gathered 5 small bags filled with the byproduct, hiding them beneath the many empty bags scattered in the corner. When I nodded, Yudi slowly rose and headed to the pile. The soldiers had once again left to get high, so he quickly planted the powder bags around the boiler, attracting curious glances from the poor souls accompanying us on that shift. I hoisted John onto my back, the old man following closely behind, and we positioned ourselves at the edge of the stairs. As soon as Yudi saw that we were ready, he lifted the water jug we received at the beginning of each day and threw it toward the boiler. Then, chaos. An explosion caused the floor directly above the boiler to collapse, powder and chemical gases making it nearly impossible to see more than a foot ahead. Screams and cries of pain ensued. One of the slaves who accompanied us was caught in the blast. An iron pipe from the boiler had pierced his neck, pinning him to the wall. And the last customers of the shop above were caught in the flames that rose like a mushroom through the hole that opened in the floor. soldiers hurried down the stairs to control the fire, not seeing us pressed against the wall. We quietly went up as soon as everyone descended to control the damage. John guided us to the stockroom. We had little time until the merchandise was moved to be saved from the flames. I could already hear murmurs from outside. The distraction had worked. We had drawn attention, perhaps too much of it. In the darkness of the stockroom, it was hard to see anything. Dozens of boxes filled the space, mostly unmarked. We had no idea which ones to break into. "What now? Did we just pick at random? You told us you had a plan," Yudi said, pulling at my shirt. "Now's not the time for this," John said somewhere in the dark. "Hell, just, I don't know. Pry open one of the smaller ones. There's supposed to be a way for the collectors to know which one to pick. Maybe there's something inside." "Look at how many boxes there are. The fire is already spreading. It won't take long till—" Yudi was interrupted by a pound at the door. "Open this door already. I want my powder safe and sound. Do you hear me? Useless bitch, hurry up." What little time we had was about to be over. I could faintly see scared eyes looking at me for answers in the dark. My heart was pounding, and I just wanted to get out of there. I noticed a pile of boxes that was more isolated than the others. Without light, it was hard to tell, but with no other choice, I hurried towards them. The door was about to give in. We would have to rely on luck. We opened 2 boxes, put on the leather mask and attempted to avoid inhaling too much of the drug, and split up, hiding within the merchandise. I stayed with John, trusting that Yudi would take care of the old man. The door gave in with a loud thud. "Quick, you incompetents! I want every damn gram secured. And you, slut, get 2 more and get this shit out of here now. If Jack shows up, he's gonna ask questions, and questions ruin an honest man's business." The screams and footsteps, the smell of the drug making me dizzy, the smoke from the fire engulfing the shop. We were hurriedly moved to the elevator, and as I felt us descending, a wave of relief filled my heart. Through the small cracks in the wood, I could distinguish the lower city slowly growing larger. The plan was working as intended. I remember John smiling. Maybe it was the drug. Maybe it was the euphoria of the moment. But I remember being happy to have him with me. I miss him. We were led to the warehouse, where they left the boxes and abandoned us in the dark. I could hardly believe how well the plan was going. Looking back now, I realized I was a fool. The collectors never checked the boxes. They just loaded them onto the cars. Before I could connect the dots, we were passing through the silver gates. Looking through the crack, I once again had the full view of that sin-ridden skeleton, and even as I moved away from it, I felt in my heart that I had already been touched by the city, and it tends to always reclaim what belongs to it. The truck that was carrying us headed towards the spire until the crown of the first circle was nothing more than a small dot on the horizon. And then it stopped. Why now? Why haven't we reached the spire yet? Why stop now? John whispered nervously in front of me. Before I could respond, a chilling shiver ran down my spine upon hearing Mice's words. "Well, I think the little show has gone on long enough, hasn't it?" The lid of our box opened, and I could hear the pumping of a shotgun. Above, Mice and 2 companions grinned maliciously at us. Well, what do we have here? Jack's new favorite little toy and his buddy. Care to tell me what you're doing in my shit? Please, Mice, you can have the drugs. Just let us go, I pleaded. Mice laughed. laughed so hard that his screwed-up lungs gave him a coughing fit. After composing himself, he ordered us to be taken out of the box. Yudi and the old man were already kneeling in the sand with their hands on their heads. Oh, amazing! Hold on, let me get this straight. You really thought your dumbass idea would work out so well? Holy shit, buddy, you're really stupid. Listen here. I'll tell you a little secret. Mice approached my face, pressing the shotgun barrel against my chin. You never would have found your little buddies again if Jack hadn't ordered it. What are you talking about? Oh, come on, use your head. Everything's so convenient, so perfect. Your whole plan worked because Jack wanted it to. Your encounter with the old man, the information that reached your colleagues, the timings lining up, the guards leaving, all observed, all permitted. My face contorted in horror. Once again, I was nothing but a pawn, a toy of that maniac. Astaroth would always watch us, the king always controlling every miserable inch of his kingdom. Why would he let us get this far? Something in your ultimate fate pleases him. If he can't extract any information from you, he'll just let you guide him to what he wants, won't he? But then, why stop us now? Ding, ding, ding! This is the question of the moment. Congratulations, idiot. Some neuron up there still works as it should. You see, I never cared about that mangy mutt. Jack is just a little baby who luckily gained a lot of power. If he's so afraid of what your mark represents like this, it means that you pose a danger to his empire. Through you, I'll have the chance to take the throne that has always belonged to me. Mice was interrupted by a sound, Yudi laughing as he watched kneeling. With a smile, Mice approached, knelt in front of Yudi, and carefully dusted the drug powder from his shoulders and asked, "And what's so funny about that to you?" "It's nothing. It's just that you call us idiots. But if you think you can usurp the throne with 2 piles of muscle and a tough attitude, you're even dumber than you seem to be." The smell of gunpowder invaded my mind before I could process what had happened. I remembered touching my head. Something was stuck in my hair. I lowered my hand and saw myself holding a loose tooth. I heard a howl of fear. But why fear? My ears were ringing. I couldn't think straight. Yudi was lying back, his skull sprawled across the sand, stained by a scarlet puddle. Oops, my bad. Loose finger and all that. You son of a bitch. I lunged towards Mice, the barrel of his gun slowly turning towards me. No, I don't think so. If you lot wish to stay alive and not get a one-way ticket straight to Lust, where we already have some scouts ready to capture you, I must point out, you will behave. All that, just to become someone's toy again. I could hardly believe it. Looking at Yudi's body, I wondered if he had felt any pain. The harder I made it for Mice, the better. Maybe if I were quick, I could escape the collectors in Lust. But then, while I pondered, others acted. The old man lunged at one of Mice's companions, biting his neck with all his might. The second one, startled, reached for his holster, but John quickly grabbed his legs, bringing him down to the ground. They were willing to fight, to die for a chance. Mice turned the gun towards them, pumping the shotgun once again. Damn it, can't you do anything right? Stay still, I can't aim like this. I saw the opportunity and grabbed the shotgun. A deadly tug-of-war ensued, and punches and kicks thrown in an attempt to take control of the weapon, the power to kill. I was malnourished, still weak, tired, and slightly high. Mice was an experienced collector, a bloodthirsty killer who had faced demons head-on. It was only a matter of time before he overpowered me. I gave up pulling the shotgun towards me and pushed it with all the weight of my body towards Mice. We fell and rolled in the dry sand, the gun stopping a few feet ahead. I crawled to the shotgun, Mice holding on to my feet and pulling me into an exchange of punches. I don't know what came over me. All the anguish, all the fury and fear accumulated until that moment exploded into rage. I gave up on the gun and threw myself at Mice, landing repeated punches to his head. Again, adrenaline is a powerful drug. Screaming, without full control of my arms, I punched. I punched until Mice's face was nothing but a red mess, until his arms stopped retaliating, until his chest stopped breathing. I continued until tears filled my eyes and sobs choked my throat. I looked at my hands, and the clear weight of what I had done became clear in my mind. Killing a person changes you. You can feel life slipping away from their eyes. Even in that place, where death is just the beginning of another cycle of pain, it still holds weight. The old man's screams of pain snapped me out of my trance. His efforts were admirable, but he was eventually thrown to the ground, where the collector attempted to strangle him. I grabbed the shotgun, and out of pure instinct, I struck the collector's head with all my strength. He immediately fell onto the old man, the base of the gun now adorned with a red stain. Looking to the side, John was trying to wrest the gun from the collector without success. In the distance, I could see dust rising. We weren't alone. The king had noticed that something was amiss. The old man took the gun from my hands and opened a hole in the collector's chest, who collapsed like a house of cards onto the dry ground. The spire was visible. We needed to go. With John in my arms, I ran. "Leave him behind. He'll do nothing but slow us down," the old man said. I could feel John's embrace tighten. He knew he was a burden. He knew what they would do to him if we left them behind. I could feel his fear. Ignoring the protests, I headed towards the spire. They were getting closer. I could discern the caravan amidst the cloud of dust. Upon reaching the spire, Aeacus's judgmental gaze bore down on us coldly. Remembering Mice's words, I approached. "Oh, Aeacus, King of Gehenna, my heart is not pure for rest. My eyes are blind to injustice, and my fists only weigh for my desires. From dust I came, and to dust I return, my soul judged to forever burn. So I beg you to open the doors to my judgment." His cold gaze remained unmoved. The spire would not heed my words. "This won't work. We need to get to the lower circles. It would be incredible if we could get Rhadamanthus' attention, but at the top of hell, it's hard for him to hear us," the old man said. "What do we do now? I've done my part. I got us out of the city. Do yours and take us to the ninth circle." The old man looked at me, his eyes burning with fury. For a moment, it seemed like there was a dark gleam in his eyes. He calmed himself and approached the entrance. The followers of the Morning Star follow his teachings in exchange for secrets and powers greater than a mere sinner could ever dream of. How to survive in such a ruthless terrain. How to tame and enchant demons and spirits. How to change oneself. The old man whispered words in a convoluted language forgotten by time. Aeacus began to chant in response, and the spire trembled in anticipation, the chamber taking on a sinister glow. Without looking back, the old man said, "A wish for a wish, a will for a gift, blood taken in exchange for bliss." What the hell are you? I asked. Nathaniel, you have a choice to make. Do you want to escape hell? Do you want your life back? Of course. Then John must die. A chill ran down my spine. Nothing comes easy in the abyss. Only pain, only suffering. John begged for mercy, and in my mind, I knew what I had to do. The price Minos demanded for his services. The old man merely watched me. John fought, and struggled until the last second. He threw himself off my back and crawled through the sand towards the caravan, which was slowly approaching. I'm sorry, John. I dragged him by the stumps of his legs into the depths of the spire. He tried to cling to the ground, breaking his nails in the process. I threw him against the inner wall, and in that moment, both of us could feel it. The spire would claim him. There would be no turning back. Death this time would be eternal. Nothingness would embrace him. I had to ensure he wouldn't escape. With tears in my eyes, I broke his arms. His screams still haunt me. Even to this day, I suffer from it. Every morning, I hear his whispers. Every night, his screams keep me awake. I did what I had to do to survive. I wished there was another option. I wished so much that John was still by my side, but hell was devised in such a way that even something as simple as friendship is only allowed for punishment. I tried to be quick. With one of the rocks from outside, I broke his knees, turned around, and left. Nate, please, Nate, don't do this to me, you bastard. What did I ever do to you? I hope you suffer, you piece of shit. Burn 1,000 times in the deepest pit of this place. When I left, a black mass flooded the chamber, and I could see as Nate was consumed by the spire. Until the moment they were dissolved, his eyes never stopped looking at me in that way, with palpable hatred. At that moment, I knew that everything I had suffered until then was justified. I belong in hell. I tried to warn you, I'm not a good person. The mass took on a purple glow, and the old man quickly pulled me inside. The last thing I saw before disappearing was the red glow of Jack's ring approaching in the caravan. The air in Heresy is putrid. A constant miasma floats in the air like snowflakes, slowly filling your lungs and eventually killing you. Outside the spire, in the center of the sixth circle, I noticed for the first time a strange mark on the back of my left hand. A delta adorned with thorns. But at that moment I couldn't focus on it. All I could do was cry, huddled near the spire, wondering if it was all really worth it. Let's go, he doesn't like to wait. Who? He looked at me, with a somber look in his eyes. Samael, the Morning Star, the true Lord of Hell. These memories pain me. My hands tremble, and my eyes filled with water, making it difficult to write. I also still haven't fully recovered from the beating I took from that angelic being. So, for today, we'll have to stop here. A hell is an eternal prison, where everything and everyone are made in place in such a way that at any moment they can be used against you. Only pain will bring you a semblance of security. Only agony will bring you power. In this insane realm of trades, I should have known that even the way out would exact a terrible price. I don't have much time. That bastard, I should have known he had something else up his sleeve. The door could give way at any moment. All I can do is pray that Father Nick arrives soon. The stained glass windows of the church showed distorted images of Gehenna. A profane choir of agonized voices fills my ears as hundreds of shadows surround the chapel. He is coming. I don't have much time left. This might be the last time you hear from me, so please pay attention. You need to know this. You need to know that last card that treacherous serpent has up his sleeve. It's finally time to recount my escape from hell. My lips quiver as I speak this out. I must be grateful to at least have a way to record my final thoughts. At the moment, I'm cornered beneath the podium of the Chapel of the Saint of Lost Causes, a forgotten structure far from the city, but in recent days, it has become one of the few places where I could find some peace of mind. After the encounter with the angel, many questions arose in my mind. Coupled with the increase in shadows surrounding and watching me, and the nightmares disrupting my rest, I felt it was time to seek some kind of help. My relationship with churches has been complicated since I returned from the dead. When I decided that I would do everything possible to avoid going back, the first thing I did was head to the nearest Catholic church. But as I knelt before the steps of the entrance, I felt an unusual chill run down my spine. At the entrance of the church stood a statue of an angel above the door. I could recognize the imperfections and marks that only human hands can produce, but something in its gray eyes alerted me. I felt as though I was once again under the cold and judging gaze of Minos. With each step I took, the discomfort grew, as if I knew I no longer belonged in that place, that there was no room in the light for me. Before I could reach the door, I turned around and ran away, only stopping when I was out of sight of that damn statue. Since then, every attempt has had the same effect, which confuses me. Forces beyond my comprehension have strangely pushed me towards these sacred grounds, like the taxi incident. It's as if two parents were fighting, each trying to influence a neglectful child. I felt tossed around, caught in the crossfire of beings so ancient and with such mysterious intentions. An ant in a field of giants. And I would have continued this tug-of-war if it weren't for Nick, Father Nicholas. Our meeting was a twist of fate. I was stuck in the hospital's medical wing, trying to rationalize the events that had left me bedridden, and he entered my bedroom by mistake, thinking I was one of the soon-to-be-dead patients awaiting my final prayer. It took a while to convince him otherwise. That simple mistake probably saved my life, even not being the one he was searching for. Father Nick felt something in me. He insisted on praying for my soul nonetheless. As I closed my eyes, a foul stench filled the room. It got cold. I could hear a high-pitched buzzing swirling around, like a swarm of angry wasps searching for a victim. When I opened my eyes, I saw the shadows stretching across the walls, forming the faces of horrendous beings with insects with wings and twisted horns, thin tails covered in spikes, and bifurcated claws that tore at the wallpaper as they moved. The shadows danced in an unholy festival, mocking me, reveling in my suffering. Even though the horror consuming my mind was overwhelming, my skin as pale as snow and my heart pounding, begging me to flee, the scream of terror that echoed through the ward didn't come from me. For the first time, I wasn't the only one seeing demons. Father Nick clutched his cross so tightly I swore his fingers would fall off from lack of blood. I recognized pure fear in his eyes. But even in the face of the irrational, that man didn't abandon me. With one hand on my shoulder, he told me to cover my eyes and pray. Even when the laughter grew louder, when the equipment toppled over and the lights flickered, we didn't stop praying. Who knows how long we stood there, pleading for the benevolence of a higher being. When everything finally calmed and we dared to open our eyes, the room was completely destroyed. Nick managed to get me out of there before the nurses arrived. In the days that followed, he helped me a lot. I didn't tell him everything, but he had seen firsthand that the abyss had its eyes on me, and as a man of God, he couldn't allow himself to ignore that. It was weird. Throughout my journey through the 9 circles, it was hammered into my mind that I would always be alone, that if I didn't betray the sinners first, they would betray me. Even when I ignored all the warnings and dared to extend a hand, I lost those who accompanied me. I don't deserve to be back. I don't deserve any help. But Nicholas was persistent, and his words, practically torn from the Bible, were spoken with such conviction that, even knowing the light had long abandoned me, I couldn't help but feel slightly touched by them. Even when I pushed him away, he always returned, asking me to visit his church. "The doors are always open to those in need," he repeated. Hearing now the sound of wood creaking, the storm worsening, I can only hope that tonight they remain firmly shut. The time of my second trial is approaching, and I have the feeling that this time I won't be able to escape my sentence. So pay attention, because if, when death finally catches up to you, you find yourselves thrown into the tar pits and torture from hell, you'll want to know how to escape this cruel fate. But be warned, it won't be easy. If I close my eyes and take a deep breath, I can still remember. I can still feel the foul air of heresy accumulating in my lungs, the constant miasma piling up on my back like snow, hot as embers, the muddy ground that clings to you, and the terrible sight of the abyssal wardens. As I walked through the 6th circle, my emotions erupted within me. I feel dirty, rotten. I just followed the old man without saying anything, occasionally looking at the delta on my hand. John's furious gaze still weighed on my memories, and the vision of Yudi's splattered brain surfaced every time I closed my eyes. I didn't even know why I was so determined to escape anymore. It was only fair that I suffer in that eternal cycle of agony. The swampy ground gave way to cracked and tortuous terrain, the spire becoming just a small strip on the horizon. Around us, a new scene unfolded. The 6th circle is primarily composed of obsidian towers reaching up to the sky, with thick, twisted branches complementing them like lights on a Christmas tree. These towers house caves at their lower points, where sinners are held captive by hideous creatures, the true wardens of the abyss. The old man motioned for me to crouch, his expression revealing the level of danger we were in. My curiosity fought against my guilt, and, winning, compelled me to peek. Knowing what inhabited that circle, it only made my anxiety worse. The wardens' bodies resembled that of a centaur, with a lower part like a horse, irregular hooves, and defined muscles. Their tails are like living fire, spreading flames wherever they go, glowing with energy when they hunt, torture, and devour their prey. From the torso up, they resemble a locust, with 4 double-jointed arms covered in bristles ending in a single claw that twists like a scythe. Their black eyes sense fear, and if you stare at them for too long, you enter a state of paralysis. The exhilaration of this moment is such that the entire horde of wardens gathers for the feast, and you'll remain conscious throughout the entire process. You'll fear their jaws open your abdomen, their limbs tear yours apart, their faces chew yours, and you'll only return to the tar pits when there's nothing left that can be defined as you. In summary, stay away from the dark prisons. Unfortunately for us, our fate loomed just beyond them. Listen here, we need to mask our scent. These specific demons have an incredibly keen sense of smell. After that, we'll cross the valley." "What? Did you see the size of those things? Can't we go around?" The old man turned to face me. "Look around. This field seems to stretch to the horizon. We're not in a fixed location. These prisons form and move at their master's will. The perfect tool for the perfect job. It's like a compressed bubble of murderous intent. There's no going around. You suck it up and face it head on. Or do you prefer to wait until that maniac catches up with us?" "Jack, stop talking nonsense. He's in limbo. And by the time he's halfway here, we'll be long gone." "Damn it, kid. Jack ain't a novice like you. He's been here for centuries. He knows paths and highways that many have never heard of. And you forget who he is, who he believes himself to be. Or do you not remember what we did? We spat in the face of that damn self-proclaimed Emperor of the Abyss, whose ego and greed are so immense that he even managed to control a demon prince. Do you think he'd give up so easily? I wouldn't be surprised if he's already setting foot in heresy as we speak." My last sight before being swallowed by the spire reshaped in my mind. Jack's enraged face, his ring glowing intensely red, Astaroth's shadow looming over the caravan. "Damn it, show the way." The old man crawled to a small mound of miasma, grabbed a handful, and began smearing himself with it. The smell was strong. I could see his face contorting with pain. With little choice, I did the same. My face bubbling with pain, struggling not to scream, and tears streaming so heavily I could barely keep my eyes open. Armed with only a handful of hope and hearts full of dread, we began to sneak past the black towers. With every scream I heard, I tightly closed my eyes, believing we would be next. The screams and cries punctuated by the stampede of hooves, the pleas for help from sinners trapped like birds in cages, so close that sometimes I could distinguish their faces and catch a glimpse of the sadistic tortures they endured. Occasionally, the wardens would release some sinners, letting them run far, letting them dream of a semblance of freedom, only to cruelly hunt them down later. Like a mischievous ritual, where the only reward was capture and sometimes death. In one such instance, a lady fell near the rocks where we hid. One of the wardens cut her knees and watched as she crawled futilely, begging for mercy. I couldn't bear to watch it to the end. My stomach churned with disgust. The cruelty was such that many bit their tongues in a futile attempt to escape the demon's clutches. But something in that valley held them. Their bodies fell limp in their cells, only to rise minutes later. After hours of hiding behind rocks, holding our breath as packs passed by, and suppressing cries of pure fear and despair when the demons approached, we could finally see the end of the black towers. My left hand started to itch. The mark now glowed red. Confused, I looked to the old man for answers, but he angrily ignored me. "Stop this shit. I've said 100 times I never wanted anything to do with any of this. I just want answers. You said you'd tell me more as we traveled, right? Spit it out." I felt the tension release from my shoulders as we set back onto the cold, muddy ground. In the distance, a cluster of immense rocks stretched out lonely atop a hill. For some reason, I felt afraid. The mark is reacting to his presence. Samael is cunning and incredibly smart. Even imprisoned in the depths, he still holds ways and means to know what goes on in his realm. Gehenna is just a small part of the whole that makes up his soul, his essence. His body extends beyond what we can see, even in this cursed dimension. At this point, the mark's glow intensified, and the back of my hand started to burn. It's as much a part of him as he is of it. No matter how hard you fight, it's impossible to escape yourself. What the hell? My hand! The old man began pulling me towards the rocks, which started trembling as if they were alive, waiting for me all this time. That's why he needs a new body, one that ain't eternally sealed to this plane. For centuries he sought the perfect vessel, the creature worthy to bear his new and perfect form, the true Messiah, the one and only God of this world. And he found her. After much searching he found her. Above the stars the ritual was performed, the wound cursed with the presence of his only son. What the hell are you implying? This is madness. This is... The wait is over. Your mission is unique and imperative. Your body was meticulously crafted for this moment. All of us, humble servants of the Morning Star, dreamed of the moment where we would willingly surrender our bodies so that his eternal kingdom could begin. It pains me to give up this beautiful dream, but I tremble with happiness, knowing that in any case he'll be free. Come closer, Nathaniel. Your Father and Lord awaits you. I'm sorry, but I had to admit this fact. Until now, I can barely believe it. I don't want to believe it. Everything I went through, everything I suffered, no matter how I had lived my life, even if Holly were still alive, even if none of that had happened, my fate was set in stone, made from stardust and the devil's wrath, with the sole purpose of bringing him to earth and sowing destruction. I am the fucking Antichrist. And at that moment, I was about to meet my father. The old man pushed me into the center of the rocks, which spun around, creating thick black smoke around us. The mark extended down my arm, invading my veins, pumping poison into my heart. I screamed, cried, begged for an end. I didn't want to go. The terror that filled me was so great that I could hardly realize that indeed we were being followed. Jack's plan had suffered a setback, but at no time had I failed to do what he wanted. I escaped limbo. I led him to the sixth circle, and now I would lead him to the only one who could oppose his reign. Before my consciousness shattered into 1,000 pieces and was carried away by the winds towards the deepest point of hell, I could see two silhouettes throwing themselves into the whirlwind of shadows. We had brought company. I want you to try to imagine the deepest darkness. Think of the emptiness of space, the vast expanses of incomprehensible sizes that harbor nothingness for billions of light years. Think of the deepest point of the ocean, where life barely exists, where sunlight is mere folklore, and only cold and loneliness accompany you. Pride is lonely. A space, a confinement so small and insignificant compared to the other circles, yet so much crueler. Only cold and nothingness in every direction. You are completely forgotten by creation. Light rejects you. Your senses abandon you. Your consciousness is crushed and compressed into an infinitely small space, yet containing a vastness that harbors nothing. All the great beings of hell share the natural terror that haunts life, the entropy that carries everything away. Some, like the succubus, even use it to hunt. But here, in the central point of this cyclone of hopelessness, in the maximum security wing of this prison, nothingness is thick and eternal. Yet, we're talking about God's former favorite angel here. There's a card up the sleeve. Even this deepest point of hell is still part of Gehenna, still part of his body. Although there's no physical space to contain the soul, even demons can dream. And when I opened my eyes, I found myself inside Samael's dream, face to face with the embodiment of evil. Beside me, I could see Jack and the strange girl who always seemed fascinated by me, the old man kneeling just ahead, all completely fascinated. The devil, after all, is extremely beautiful. The body of a model, with long golden silky hair, eyes red as rubies, and beautiful white wings. Even in the face of such beauty, I could sense whom I was about to speak with. Like a gazelle before a lion, I was nothing to him. Just a weak flame of a candle that could be extinguished at any moment. Long minutes passed until Samael smiled and extended his arms. "Nate, my beautiful child, I've longed to meet you. Why don't you sit? We have much to talk about." As if by magic, a table and 2 chairs appeared in front of me out of nowhere. Samael sat down. "But what about them?" I said, pointing at the other 3, who strangely hadn't moved a muscle since I woke up. "They won't bother us. Our conversation is just father to son." Carefully, I sat down, and in that moment, 2 glasses appeared. Samael lightly touched the mouths of both, and wine slowly filled them. "Incredible, isn't it? If you want, I'll teach you how." "I know what you want with me." Samael brought the glass to his lips, slowly sipped the wine without taking his eyes off of me, and spoke again with a fond smile. "Nate, don't take the daydreams of a stuttering old man so seriously. All I want for you is to have a better life." "What do you mean?" "You see, your grandfather was very cruel to me, and this fate, as you can see over the last few decades, also affects my entire lineage. But unlike him, I love you, Nate. I truly love you, and I only wish that you could return to the earthly world to enjoy a sincere life." I could feel the sincerity in his words, an intense love that only a father could have. But in the depths of my mind, a small part of myself was screaming, completely terrified. "If you only want my good, why am I still here? Do you know how much I've suffered since I died? If what you say is true, I shouldn't have even fallen here to begin with." "Nathaniel, use your head. I do have some control over my body, but I'm in prison. And what power does a convict have over the cell that holds him?" Unable to answer, I brought the cup to my mouth and slowly drank. It was sweet and warm, and as it went down my throat, the taste changed to intangible things. A summer sun, a mother's embrace. Let's face it, if you don't have control over Gehenna, how do you plan to get me out of here? For a few moments, I swore his perfect teeth were twisted and sharp, but he returned back to normal as if nothing had happened. "To get out of hell, one must rewrite one's name in the book of life. Beyond this circle, there is purgatory, where the book rests, but only with a tangible body can you manipulate it. The way it is now, even if I sent you there, would be useless." A plate of grapes materialized in front of us, and Samael invited me to try them. While I satiated my hunger with the taste of the stars, he continued to speak. "But if you allow me, I can give you a part of my consciousness, and with that you should be able to manage a new body." My heart was racing. Perhaps because of the food, perhaps because of the presence in front of me. But I felt strangely lethargic, compelled to accept. But something in that friendly smile gave me a terrible feeling. I needed to be smart. Looking around once more, I laid eyes on the strange woman, and in that tense moment, the pieces came together in my mind. Wait, she can't be... Holly? How could I not recognize her? Her plump lips, her eyes once so full of hope and dreams. Even now, after decades of torment, her curves still drove me crazy. There was no doubt it was the same Holly I fell in love with. The same Holly I killed. Looking at Holly's body and the ring still glowing on Jack's hand, I had an idea. Cruel and insane, but at this point, After going through so much, it was worth a try. Like many of you, I also know the tales and stories, the deals with demons and otherworldly entities. If I really was my father's only hope of getting out of hell, perhaps he was desperate enough not to notice a few details. Say, Dad, I wish to make a deal.
What do you think this is, a business meeting? What more could you possibly want?
I pointed towards Holly, still standing perfectly still in the middle of the void. The love of my life. If I'm going back, I want a chance, a new life, and she has to be a part of it. The Morning Star laughed.
Oh, Nate, you amuse me. If my son wants to screw, I have a lot of followers upstairs who would be delighted to.
I cut him off by getting up from the table. I don't want just any whore, I want my Holly. I don't care about everything else. For a second, I could feel his anger on my body. I thought I was going to be dismantled, but after a few moments, he just smiled.
But of course, a girl and a new body, does that suit you?
Slowly, I walked towards the three still paralyzed men. Samael's gaze on my back. I put my hands on her cold face and kissed her. It's all I want in the world. Samael smiled, stood up, and walked towards me. Without realizing that with my free hand I had discreetly taken Jack's ring off. What followed was pure chaos. The Archduke of Hell is ancient and powerful. Astaroth follows no one, guided only by his hate and will, a will that was trapped inside the ring. As soon as it was removed, Astaroth saw an opportunity to get rid of it and take revenge for centuries of servitude. He forcefully invaded Lucifer's dream. The angel's presence destabilized Samael. A breach was formed, and an intense pure light. But I couldn't escape like that. Not without a body. When Astaroth manifested, piercing Jack's chest with his hand and consuming him entirely, I put the ring on without a second thought. A scream of hatred invaded the Oniric realm. Samael grew in size, his beautiful torso twisted into 1,000 facets. The devil, Satan, the seraphim, Beelzebub, Baal, fury, hate, and malice. I could feel my mind burning, the mark of the beast growing again on my arm. I was about to be reformed. Myself would be stolen and made a husk for primordial evil. Focusing my attention on the ring, in a cry of fury I commanded, Astaroth, surrender and become mine. May your life become my flesh, your blood my support, and your will my vision. The Archduke tried to fight, but against the will of the ring nothing could be done. Samael could only curse me as I merged with the fallen celestial and headed for purgatory. My last vision was the face of Jack, Holly, and the old man, fated to be trapped forever in Samael's nightmare. The next thing I knew, I was naked, digging my way out of the earth, in the middle of a storm. I think you know the rest. I've done everything I can to escape my father's clutches ever since, and to get into my grandfather's good graces and escape Gehenna. But no matter what I do, no matter how hard I fight, my fate seems to be sealed. On this terrible night, I feel that something has changed. Somehow he's getting closer. The shadows of the chapel are chanting his name. The candles are going out. The cross is beginning to rust. My hope is that Astaroth's invasion has weakened my father's control. Perhaps now the way to purgatory is clear. For the first time in millennia, the prison is unguarded. Nicholas doesn't answer my messages. He said he could baptize me, you know? And today I would be reborn as a true child of God. But something tells me he won't return. Hell. is an eternal prison that holds creepy beings and the worst of humanity. But now, it's imperfect. There is a way out, if you're strong enough to find it. I promise that my father won't have my body, no matter what. I'll do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. The water is already prepared. I'll try to baptize myself. But if that doesn't happen, it was good to share my memories with you all. May hell never take hold of your souls. Hey everybody, Kevin here from Nightmares Nightly. If you made it this far, I want to thank you all for listening. I also want to take a minute to let everybody know that I'm going to be setting up a YouTube membership page soon that I hope to bring videos to every week. If you'd like to support me and the channel, please consider signing up for that, or my Patreon page, where I'll soon be uploading content as well. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my current patrons, Ashley, Mars, Amy, and Zarin Ray, for supporting me in what I do. And as always, thanks for listening, everybody.